Hello, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to Satsang. Satsang is an ancient spiritual practice from India. It means being in reality together. I give Satsang live every Wednesday and Sunday night in Portland, Maine. This Dharma talk was recorded during one of our Wednesday night gatherings. Please visit jayakula.org to learn more about the teachings. You can find video satsangs on Jayakula's YouTube channel, and my books are all available on Amazon.com. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. So there's a teaching that was kind of hammered into my head when I was, like you, practicing with my teacher. And that teaching was that you can't know the fruits of the practice until you do the practice. Well, we can read books that tell us what, something like what we're going to get out of our practice. And everyone loves to read those books, actually, right? Especially if they involve special powers and things like that. And to a certain extent, it's useful to understand what people have accomplished in their practice that went before you. But on another level, then, it creates a lot of conditioning, and we have certain expectations. Even just we have the expectation that I'm going to feel better. I'm going to be more relaxed. I'm going to be in a state of bliss. Something like that. Even if we don't have any specific expectations. And then we kind of front load the situation, and we start interpreting every little thing that happens in light of the fruits that we think we should be getting. Then if we don't get those specific things that we think we should be getting, we feel disappointed. We think it's not working. All of this is in our heads. The statement that we can't know the fruit of the practice until doing the practice means that knowing is embodying. Knowing is, in this tradition, in any spiritual tradition where you actually have a practice to do, knowing means that you embody it. It doesn't mean that you get an idea of it or you have a concept of it. So you can't know the fruit of the practice before you do it because you can't embody the practice before you do it. That's one level of meaning of that teaching. Another level of meaning that's very, very important is that you have to practice without knowing what you're going to get out of it. And that's a very complex statement because we do have our teachers and we have the great beings like Ma. And so we have some direct experience of the fruit of the practice. Or maybe we've had some moment in our own lives, or many moments, who knows what condition you came in, where we experienced something like the fruit of practice. But it keeps coming and going, so we have to do practice to stabilize that, whatever it is. But when we sit down, we don't have a complete understanding of what condition we're in. And it's also the case that it's not entirely up to us what we are going to experience in any one moment. So you can't know the fruit of the practice until you do the practice. Means that even if we have a strong experience of the fruit of the practice through our teachers or through our own experience in some way or another, we still cannot predict the speed at which our own awakening will happen or what it will look like step by step along the way. Or what will happen in what order. And even if we have a direct experience of something, and maybe we've read some books too, it isn't the same as walking the path. Ma often talked about the scriptures of various traditions, shastras they're called in the Indian tradition, people would say, is all knowledge contained in the shastras? People would ask her those kind of questions in India then. And she would say, well, it's like a map of a road. A map of a road tells you how to get somewhere, but it doesn't tell you about every blade of grass and every cow that's going to wander across the road and all that stuff. So there really is no other way to know either the practice or the fruit of the practice unless you do it. I've met people occasionally who had the idea that they wanted to understand the fruit of the practice or understand the path before they embarked on it. Of course, they never did anything. They just spent their time amassing some ideas about things. But when we understand that you can't know the fruit of the practice before you do the practice, then we have some idea that we simply have to practice without understanding where we're going fully, or even much. One of the biggest obstacles is thinking that we know what should happen in our spiritual practice. Because either we manufacture that somehow because we're so set on it, or we don't get it and then we stop practicing because we think it's not working. So it's really a big obstacle. It's not usual in our culture to be told to do something for hours every day without knowing what you're going to get out of it. Everyone wants to know what they're going to get out of the things that they put effort into. Mm-hmm. And you can't have that other than by direct perception. So what I'd like to do this evening is ask you, who have been practicing, whether for a short time or a long time, to reflect on your own practice and to say something about, for you, for real, for now, what is the fruit of the practice? What has been thus far the fruit of the practice for you? I think this will be helpful for people to reflect on this. And it's also helpful for people that are coming into our community to hear more about what students who are practicing in the community are experiencing.
I can say something.
This is Nandi, by the way.
I'm Nandi, by the way.
Nandi, by the way, Ananda.
Do I have to be very close? Okay. Well, I'm realizing that for me, it's a really slow path, or seems to be at this point, and that feels okay to me. I guess most recently, what I'm recognizing is a greater. I feel like I have a greater ability to be honest. And I'm getting lots of opportunities to work with that, to practice that. I've spent a lot of my life trying to manipulate people's view of a situation or experience of me in a situation, or my experience of a situation. Manipulating anything that I can. And I feel like I'm starting to do that a little bit differently. And that kind of sounds small when I hear myself say it, but it feels like something really precious to me. So.
I want to comment on a couple of things that Nandi said. This should be much bigger. First of all, whenever we have real fruit from our practice, some karma gets let go, we relax in some certain way, we discover or rediscover a capacity, or we simply have an experience of the alchemy of being re-embodied by our practice in some moment, then immediately something comes along to test that new level. And it's not in the sense of like a test from this bearded god who wants to screw you over. That's not what I mean. It's actually that test or those series of tests, like saying I feel I'm getting more honest, and now there's a lot of situations in which I can test that. It helps you to stabilize at that new level. Right? While you have these challenges that somehow magically pop up right at the moment that you think you've accomplished something. Right? Yeah. And then you get the opportunity to stabilize in that condition. Right? The other thing that I want to say is that, I want to backtrack a little there. The spiritual experience is not what we are after. We're after enlightenment. Enlightenment is not a spiritual experience that peaks and then we can tell a story about later on when we get back into our normal condition. As Rudy wonderfully said, Swami Rudrandra, a spiritual experience is a work order. Or maybe I said that, but he gave me the idea. He said that the only thing you get from a spiritual experience is more work. Right? Because that experience is like the open gateway. And you have to walk through the gate into the new landscape. You can't just stand there admiring the gateway. Ooh, look how pretty! So that takes effort. And so you get these challenges to help you to solidify that new level of being, that new capability, that new skillfulness in life. The other thing you said at the end was, it seems small to me. And we really need to stop measuring our spiritual life. This is something that's really hard for us to do here in the United States. We measure everything, right? You do not have to be great in order to be a good practitioner. There's only one way to be a good spiritual practitioner, and that's to do your practice. What comes out of it is almost none of your business. There's no point measuring it because it's not up to you. A great spiritual practitioner is someone who does practice every day. And that's really the end of the story. You do not have to accomplish high-flying things. You do not have to make your life look like Autobiography of a Yogi. You're not great, you're not small. If you're doing your practice every day, you are that, and that's all that matters. And you really have no control over the rest of it, over the outcomes. Yeah, the only input you can have is to do practice every day. And try to open your heart and be sincere. But we really, 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 really need to get over this thing that we have to be great at things. You don't have to be great at things. There's plenty of room in the middle and the bottom. Who's next?
I don't know. It's hard for me to talk about the fruits of my practice without getting emotional because I feel like it's. I'm just so grateful, and I'm so kind of in awe of something. I'm not sure what. I feel like it's my practice has let me be honest and exercise courage in a way that feels like flexing a muscle, and get to just be with myself and know myself and have the opportunity to actually get to know other people too. And it's just so much fun.
can have that.
I feel like the fruit of my practice that I can see right now, that I recognize, is really just the fact that I'm doing it. And I think what you said about what you just said helped me realize that. Just to look at what I'm doing, and other than that, I just feel like I don't know anything at all, and I don't know myself or anybody else. And I guess it feels like my practice is revealing right now how little I know about, this place I am and this place I am, and so I don't know if that's really a fruit yet, but it feels like an open place, malleable.
When we think we know before we've actually investigated, we're screwed. Being in a position of defending your so-called understanding before you have actually gone on the adventure of actually understanding anything. We've lost, in a large part, we've ceded to our brain our actual capacity for going into the world and finding out how it is. Letting the world teach us instead of going around just dreaming stuff up because we think we're smart. What spiritual practice gives you is tools to go into reality directly and find out how it is through experience. How exciting is that? That's what gets me going. That's what I want to do. I want to find out how it really is. I could care less what's going on in my head. I want to get rid of that stuff. I want to find out what's actually happening. I used to be a big intellectual. I was a college professor. I had all sorts of theories about stuff. I thought theory was really sexy. I loved making up stuff about everything. God, was that a booby prize. I mean, it was fun. It's like, romper room for your brain. But, when you can actually find out, it's so much better. So much more of an adventure.
I think that my practice has helped me to notice just how defensive I am all the time, and aggressively defensive of my self-image, and how judgmental I am of other people as a way to defend and protect myself from something that I don't even know what it was to begin with anymore. And I really, when you said what you get out of practice, the first thing I thought of is what I've been wanting to give more to actually push myself past the defensiveness and actually try to be there for people and give to people instead of just being so afraid that I'll be judged or misunderstood or whatever, that I just hide and don't do anything and watch myself die, basically. And there's so many things to use and play with and try, and I just feel like it's given me the life that I always wanted in a small way. And I could never, I hope I could someday just live in gratitude.
Hi, it's Elaine. I feel like this is perfect timing. I was actually thinking about this yesterday and today, just feeling like I'm in another blah phase where just everything is a little bit bland and lackluster in terms of just, I guess karmic patterns, just feeling like there's nothing to grab onto right now that interests me or excites me, and things kind of feel flat. Which then makes me wonder, what am I getting out of this if everything just feels blah? But I think kind of what Atmiko was saying is that, the more I do this, I mean, in some ways I feel like I know less and less. But I think on the other side of that too, like there is just like a sense of settling, like even if it feels like things are falling away and it feels uncomfortable, there's also like a comfort in that I'm finding, and maybe just feeling less reactionary to life and more evenness. Here's to the blahs.
Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between the blahs and just entering into greater neutrality about life. Neutrality in the sense of not grasping and not pushing things away and trying to massage and manipulate and get things to go our way. We adopt or we experience a more neutral feeling toward the things that happen in life. And when we're recalibrating and just getting used to that, it can feel like, wait a minute, I'm not having any response to anything. But then we recalibrate it after a while and we realize that there's much more enjoyment being in that condition than being in the condition of always striving in this anxious way to make the world conform to what we want.
I've been really feeling a lot different lately, almost like a different person. I feel like for so long I was kind of like in a garbage compactor, just turning inward in a bad way, closing off everything around me. And for the past probably month, I've been feeling more like I'm sitting in a chair, and I'm more settled, and I have more interest in the external and other people, and everything feels a lot smoother, and I have a sense for the first time in a long time that everything is okay. A pretty amazing feeling. That even though everything can be falling apart, I feel totally confident. Pretty great.
Anybody want to complain? The mic's open for complainers. Ron, do you want to complain?
Sure.
Yeah. Hey, you might have to move up. I don't think this is going to reach back to you.
Well, I'm not going to complain. I just took the mic by saying that.
Okay.
Well, I used to be very resistant, like up until very recently. And somehow, like, the resistance is going down these days. And I am doing, like, practice. And I want to do more of it. So that looks like itself a fruit to me. Yeah, it just makes me feel that life is worthwhile. And that's something that is easy for me to lose track of sometimes. Sometimes I feel like life is a duty or something. Like I'm bound to duties and I have to just go through the motions every day. And practice is helping me like not deal with life that way.
I don't know if this is a stabilized fruit that I've really fully accomplished, but I've always had a lot of certainty about, or thought I had certainty about what my life should look like or what I should do and, where things would go and how things would look in some future world that I had in my mind or even in the moment. And I think practices sort of has helped me to just relax in a really ordinary way of just not always trying to control everything to fit into the box that I want it to fit in, and very slowly learning to just stop or go really slow. Like I don't like to go slow. I like to just get things done and have a goal accomplished. And so I don't think I've stabilized this fruit, but I have learned to at least slow down and wait for things to come to me sometimes and be okay with just not knowing, because I've always wanted to just know the answers to stuff and have it be done with, like a checklist. Okay, I know the answer to that. I can move on. And so I guess it's really created like a lot of doubt for me, but in a good way. And like I feel like it's just a more open place to be.
The human mind works very, very quickly. We can have 1,000 thoughts in a minute about what we want it to do and when we want to do it and how we want to do it. But reality, that at least the dualistic part of reality, is like a cosmic yacht, a cosmic cruise liner. It turns very slowly. Lots of factors have to be arranged in the timing of anything. And so as practitioners who are trying to sensitize ourselves to time, that's one of our jobs, is to sensitize ourselves to time. A lot of us have to learn to slow down and wait for the right time or feel for the right time. And this can be excruciating because we're taught to just make decisions and go. And we have apps to help us with that, you know. And it's hard to even imagine that we shouldn't live that way, right? That we should just wait and see what happens and not live our life as this continual sequence of serial decision making. It's really hard to stop that momentum of that pattern, right? I just had this experience recently, even after years of painful learning of how to not make decisions and just slow down and wait for things to happen. I wanted to put some money that I had in the bank into some mutual funds. And so I did a divination about investing in Apple, and it said, "Oh no, don't. There's going to be a big debacle. Something disastrous is going to happen." But then I didn't go further and ask, well, what about other investments? Because if I had, I would have realized that the debacle was not just about Apple, it was about the whole stock market. But see, I thought I could just use my mind and think of things and they would be the right things. Stuff like that happens all the time. Why don't we ask? Why don't we just ask? Right? Why do we keep continually make these decisions? We have the tools to ask. Right? So a big part of spiritual practice, in fact, I would say a huge portion of spiritual practice, is learning how to follow. When you're being a practitioner, you're being a follower. You're following your teacher, you're following nature, you're following a tradition. Ultimately, all those things are the same. You're following wisdom. You're following natural wisdom. And there are many, many tools we have to communicate with natural wisdom. And why don't we use those tools, right? Because we forget that it's not all up to us. We think, well, I'll research this mutual fund and I'll look at their reports and then I'll make a decision. Right? I didn't make any bad investments, but it wasn't the right timing. And, it's kind of funny that after all this time and being a very good diviner, that I would still move forward without doing a divination about it. Isn't that interesting? Just because I just get into the momentum of it, deciding everything in an ordinary mind way. It's not a disaster. I don't really care all that much. The stock market's going to go back up at some point. I don't feel like anything really terrible has happened, but I could have avoided it if I had just done one or two more divinations. Do you want to say anything, Juliet?
I feel like practice has given me the ability to be more in touch with myself and know when I feel uncomfortable and be honest. And so thank you.
You're welcome. Hey, listen to that voice. Whoa! You just said that whole thing in one go with no ums, no breaks, no restarts. That's pretty great.
Thank you.
Go, girl. Anybody else want to talk? You don't have to be my student. You want to talk about any practices, your life as a practitioner?
Well, I'm a newbie, but what I'm feeling is just happiness to be back on a path with a teacher and a community, and I can't tell you how much that moves me. So, thank you.
Well, no, I know. I'm just very, very grateful to be here and to have come the times that I have, and basically that's it. Really, I guess I've been wanting something like this again in my life. I have had other practices, and I went through a very dark spell, and became very cynical, and I even knew that this is not me, but I really bought into it. It is, and it's so powerful that it became a life. It took on a life of its own, so I'm just I was at the same time during this kind of practice, the dark practice. I did know that I really needed to get out of it, and I did sometimes pray that I would find a place where I would feel where I could start to come back to what I really think my true self is, and that's not that dark place. Yes. So anyway, I'm just really grateful to be here and a part of this in however way that I am. So.
Happy to have you in whatever way you want. You want to say anything to about it? Another newbie?
Another newbie. There's just so much that's been happening that's been so wonderful for me. To be able to sit with myself and have a practice and have a teacher. And I really want to say that looking at my fixations and experiencing that, and you first talking to me about that really was the biggest hit of compassion I ever could imagine. Thank you for that.
I described you the other day, Giovanni, as an absolutely pure pearl in a pile of shit. I think.
I will touch you too.
Do you want to say anything? The ultra newbie and the youngest person in our community right now.
I was feeling around in there trying to, manipulate what I was going to say. Of course.
No.
And I didn't really find anything except for two things that you've said to me that really have kind of glaringly exemplified themselves to me. One was that with all of the walls and manipulation and pushing people away and keeping people out, it's also keeping things from coming in. And reality is right there and it's beautiful and it can't come in if you shut down and shut off. And I didn't really fathom that a whole lot when you said it until it's just become very clear that that's exactly what happens. And I don't want to keep things from coming in. And then the other one was when you climb to the top of a mountain only to find yourself at the bottom of another very large mountain. And I feel like my very first mountain was realizing that I had a path and a practice, and this is what feels like what I am doing. And then I looked ahead and said, oh, okay, we'll just keep going. And it feels really scary sometimes. And then other times it's really exciting. And just like knowing that there's the possibilities are infinite. That's huge for me to feel. I'm really happy for that.
The end of this path is where reality stands totally revealed. Grace, you there? Or should I call dibs? I don't know. Yeah, I got to use everything, even your competitiveness. I didn't know I was competitive either before my teacher pointed it out. It's incredible. Things we don't know.
I'm competitive, I'm just the best.
Yeah. The only thing you really need to know is that if you keep practicing, you will receive the fruits of that practice. You can have absolutely utter confidence in that. You can't say when, you can't say exactly what exactly it will look like, but if you keep going, you will be responded to. And that is incontrovertible fact. Everything else? But it means you don't really have to worry about anything other than doing your practice. You can just be an ordinary person doing your practice. And everything will unfold from that. You don't have to tell stories about yourself. You don't have to berate yourself. That's it. And I also wanted to speak a little bit to what Deva Madhu said about giving. I've found, and I didn't know this when I first started practicing, I thought everything was about powering through these big tantric practices, But I found, as I went on, that it's okay to be simple, and that the greatest service you can give your teacher is to do your practice and realize. And that beyond that, giving service to the teacher and to the community, or to anybody really, it doesn't have to be your teacher, but to anybody, is a great, great refuge. When you feel you've failed, or everything's going hell in a handbasket, or things are just going excruciatingly slowly, you don't know if you'll ever realize in 10,000 lifetimes. Your teacher is giving you a hard time, the wisdom beings are giving you a hard time, you feel obstructed, you can always serve. You are never obstructed from serving. Right? And that is an incredible grace to me. Now I think this way. I didn't used to think this way. I used to be like, service, schmervis. I'm gonna do my practice. That's all that counts. My seated practice, right? But now I understand that there's all different things that happen in seated practice, and all different karmas that come up, and all different phases of that practice. And sometimes we feel really raked over the coals. And service is the great refuge, because when you can give service, you feel good about yourself. No matter what. No matter what else is happening, at least you can pick up a dish and wash it. Anybody can do that. No matter no matter if you think your sadhana is in the pits or not. Whether you think you'll ever learn anything else about life or not. You can always pick up a dish and wash it. You can always sweep something. You can always cook a meal. You can always give somebody a comforting look or a helping hand, right? And then you can re-experience your goodness in any situation of your life. This is what I was trying to tell you in different ways, Elaine. If you want to feel better about yourself, you have to give.
That's a big reason why I chose the career that I chose.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. In this country, we tend to be skeptical, about serving teachers or serving spiritual communities. We, think, well, maybe there's something dangerous about that, right? The reason why we serve teachers in our communities is because that's a gateway to serving everybody else. We learn how to be generous and how to feel the condition that other people are in and know what they need through the medium of our teachers in our spiritual communities. But ultimately, we don't want to stay there. That's like growing a flower in a greenhouse and never taking it anywhere and giving it to anybody, right? We have to tend the flower in the greenhouse and make it beautiful, but then we want to take it somewhere and give it to somebody, right? So we have to leave the hothouse of our service to our teacher and our community at some point or another. Maybe in this lifetime, maybe not, who knows. But in any case, everybody's different. But in any case, the point is that we're practicing to serve everybody, to be of benefit to everybody, not just this little group of people. That wouldn't be a good end result, to just, forevermore only serve one person. Right? Although it's fine to do that for a while. That's needed to wear down all of your ridiculous ideas about everything. A lot of it's about grinding, grinding down all the rock of our karmas. And then when they're gone, the water can flow freely. And then we can serve anybody in any situation. Jayakula is a nonprofit community offering opportunities to learn and practice in the direct realization traditions of Trika Shaivism and Dzogchen. We are based in Portland, Maine and Portland, Oregon. Visit jayakula.org to explore more of our offerings.